just wanna keep it going, like the night is never over. From tonight until the morning, I just wanna get to know you. I just want to, baby, get to know you. If you want to, I just want to, baby, get to know you. I just want to, baby, get to know you.
Howdy, folks. Welcome into the SMITE Challenger Circuit. It is week 2, day number 2, and this morning we find ourselves in Europe. Dime's here. You got me for play-by-play. I'm joined by my good pal Kaizo. He's got things covered on the analyst side of things. And Kaizo, buddy, it's week 2, day number 2. Once again, this SEC Journey to Masters is a sprint, not a marathon, and me and you are handling Europe this morning.
Yeah, we are definitely on the EU duty, man. It is very early here, but from what I understand, assuming the EU is a real place, it should be actually pretty late in the day over there. And we've got the Titans and the Bolts, two teams that, at least by name, Dimes, this would be an SPL matchup 1 year ago, but now we're going to be covering all the action here over here in the SEC.
Yeah, a little bit later in Europe, but for me, I'm sipping on a white chocolate raspberry latte because it is 8 a.m. where we are. I've never casted Smite this early, but you know what? It's good to do new things. These are two teams that, some newcomers, or I say newcomers, these are all pretty established players in the Smite competitive scene, but some names that really stick out to me: Listimics and Maskill on the Titans, and Sager and Hedgehog for the Bolts. These are two teams that just 1 year ago would have been a titanic matchup in the SPL, now relegated to the SEC. We got to see how these two teams match up. Let's head into picks and bans for game number 1 of this best of 3 set to kick off this Smite Saturday.
And as we go into picks and bans times, I really want to pay attention to what gets banned away here, because the picks that actually come through, what people prioritize in that top 3, has been fairly consistent. It's been a lot of the Marty Chorus. It's been a lot of the Terra, Guan Yu, apparently Opwash as well. And then your traditional ADC matchup of the Ishtar versus the Kernanos. But It's really in this ban phase that we see what the teams are actually prioritizing. Like, sometimes things will go through and then go completely unnoticed, like this Opwash that you just mentioned, where, teams will first ban it overall and then other teams just don't even pay attention to it. And then Neath! Like, what's a Neath doing down there?
That feels somewhat targeted at the Olympus Bolts. Maybe there's some sort of European strat that I'm not aware of. But on the other side, Yemoja and Mercury, two gods that have found their way into the meta. I mean, Yemoja hasn't left it since release, but Mercury definitely a shot at Maskill there. One of the more higher profile junglers in the league here. And there goes the Marty Chorus on the other side. Speaking of that Marty Chorus, seen it taken into the middle lane. ADCs coming back into the middle lane never really went away, but do you think in Europe that's a playstyle we're going to see leaning towards?
Well, the EU playstyle is traditionally a little bit slower and a little bit more calculated as opposed to the NA playstyle, which we see a lot more fighting early on, right? So I wouldn't be surprised that, something like a Hunter that wants to get a whole bunch of items online, scale into the late game, would have a pretty comfortable place in an EU meta. But, I mean, once you take away the Marty, I'm looking at things like maybe a Kernanos mid or the Neath potentially as your ADCs that like to play there. But otherwise, I'm not sure that you would rather have one of these Hunters over some of the mage options we've got available. It's a pretty deep god pool for the mid laners right now, where they have a bunch of different options available to them in the mages. So just forcing yourself to pick a Hunter, I don't think is necessarily something that you should be trying to do.
Titans kicking things off with a Vamana pick. We've seen that flex into the jungle by the likes of Captain Twig. Also could head into the solo lane more traditionally. Bolts answer back with two of the strongest picks in today's game: Ishtar headed into the duo lane, and then Hercules. I mean, we saw, I can't remember who it was yesterday, an SPL player with so much displacement on this Hercules. I mean, literally controlling team fights with pushes and pulls and boulders, and creating so much pressure and distance. And then, of course, you have a giant boulder and a heal that makes you pretty much unkillable. I'm very excited to see how this Hercules lines up for the Bolts. And then if you pick the Ishtar, you got to answer back with this Kernanos and the ever-popular Hebo.
Yeah, and it might have been fine okay yesterday, but I mean, if we're talking people that make the Hercules look good, Heed was also in that conversation yesterday as well. And in that set, actually, the Vammen popped off. Like, this is beginning to become one of my favorite jungle picks to watch because it's so explosive, it's so violent, it requires so much value and so much attention every time that you actually try to play a team fight. If you're not paying good attention to this Vammen, he will feast on your backline. You will not be able to handle him pretty much at all with just one person. It requires a good team effort to do so, and even then you're still at risk of getting stomped on. So I do think that, Vammen first pick overall is a little bit strange to me, but I think that the priority that teams are beginning to put on this pick is definitely worthwhile.
Bolts rounding out their side of the draft with a Baron Samadi. Couple of bans. The dreaded Outwash taken off the table. Same
There
thing
it
with
is.
the Horus. I promise. Okay, so I told you a little bit earlier. If Outwash was picked, I was going to go on a giant rant. That's a ban.
Can we
That's
get
not
just
a
a
pick.
little bit? Just a little bit, just a taste.
No, I'm going to uncork that bottle when he gets picked and is
Okay.
actually on the battleground. But
That's
a couple
fair.
of Guardians X'd out there by the Titans, Fafnir and Kepri. And the return pick. That's kind of interesting to me with the Baron Samadi pickup by the Bolts that they're targeting 2 Guardians there. Baron Samadi typically taken into that support role as the Yu Huang is hovered and locked in by the Bolts.
Yeah, likely in that case to be the Baron and solo lane. I do think that right now you can kind of flex it to either one. I wouldn't necessarily love to see Baron in mid, but at least between support and solo, as long as you get him tanky enough that he's not going to be smothered by something like this Vomit and at least bursted too quickly, I think that the Baron has a pretty comfortable place. But, you know, you're reacting pretty viscerally to this Sobek. Why don't you tell me what you're thinking?
It's not the Sobek, it's the Awilix. I mean, look at this team. Vamana, Habwa, Sobek, Awilix. That's 4 different knockups that you can use for that Awilix ultimate. And if one of these squishy targets, like the Ishtar, the Baron Samadi, someone with a little bit less mobility, I'm sorry, I'm chair 2ing. I'm just excited for this competition from the Titans. But, I mean, you see the potential here, Kaizo.
Sure, and it is worth noting that I consider Sobek Willish to be the easiest combination in all of SMITE, because you don't even have to hit the pluck in order to get the Willish ult off of it. You can pluck in and use the 2, and that knockup is actually sufficient and very reliable to get an Willish pull off of. So that's some very good displacement, which traditionally Baron Samdi struggles with. Back when Baron was, a top pick very consistently, we saw a lot of Sobek in the solo lane to counter him, even in the support role, just because he's very comfortable once he can get his feet planted and can move around the team fight. But after you bring him into the jaws of the team, he doesn't have great tools to distance himself. So I do actually really like the Sobek pickup into the Baron, despite the fact that traditionally people don't think Sobek too great right now, but I definitely think it's got a pretty good home here.
Anubis snapped in for the Olympus Bolts here. We're going to talk about it, but first we have to head into the battleground with the gods to kick off this Smite Saturday with the Olympus Bolts and the Tartarus Titans. Let's see where everybody shakes out. So it is going to be Baron Samadi in that support role, and then Anubis heading into the jungle for Hedgehog. Talk me through that one, Kaizo.
So Anubis jungle is kind of your do or die pick. This is one where it's actually pretty similar in playstyle to the Hebo, I would say, both relatively immobile, however, both very, very accustomed to playing very aggressively and just trying to all in, all or nothing. Like, you'll see that Hedgehog here has the blink on the Anubis. You would traditionally think maybe a Beads would be a good pickup for you just to keep yourself safe from something like the Awilishult, but what you need to understand, Dimes, is that if you're playing defensively, if you're on the back foot with this character, you have already lost. He does not have the tools required to prevent himself from getting smothered, prevent himself from getting aggressed onto. You've always got to be on the front foot and asking all of the questions. He's got crazy good damage output, pretty good crowd control as well. That wrap is a very effective tool for getting one kill. However, if you end up getting aggressed on in the jungle, if you don't have good ward coverage, if something happens unexpectedly, not typically your go-to guy for being able to deal with that situation very effectively.
It's just so curious to me. We had kind of just talked about the potential of this Tartarus Titans team with the insane amount of knockups, and we haven't really touched on the CC either, but tons of lockdown on the side of Dazer, Maskill, and Zany, that 3-piece combo in the middle lane there. Kind of just feels like if this Anubis gets caught out, if Hedgehog gets caught in the jungle by even a combination of Maskill and Dazer, that kind of spells curtains. Hedgehog blinking in here, use those locusts. You can now move while using that ability. Yeah. Important to remember, so a little bit more mobility here for the side of Hedgehog, who otherwise would be just easy feasting for this Awilix.
And that is kind of the thing that brought him back into the meta. I don't think that he lives or dies based on his ability to use that Plague of Locust and move while doing it. I think it's a nice quality of life change, and it definitely makes the Anubis player a little bit more comfortable, but this is not a change that makes him viable. He was already basically doing the same thing. It's just incrementally easier to do so now that you can actually move in that ability.
Hedgehog level 3 here's got the wrap online, wrapping around on Toddy and Dazer. Throws down the 3 there, a little bit of Plague of Locust, steals some farm from his duo lane. He's going to rotate right on out. It is going to be a A 3v2 in this left side lane as the shield buff comes online, but look around here. Maskill has made the rotation in the back line. Knockup available. Hedgehog falling low here, but misses the knockup over the top there of Hedgehog, but now caught in between two. Maskill able to get away. A couple of jukes pluck in by Dazer.
Interesting.
And this aggression's not done, but it's going to be a full wash here for both these squads.
Yeah, Dazer wanted a little bit more there. I think that Toddy and Mask both wanted to probably go back to farming. It's a little unfortunate that Mask couldn't find the knockup there. I'm not sure that they necessarily get the better of that trade, even if he does, but certainly means that the disengage is absolutely coming once that cooldown goes down and you don't find a whole lot of purchase for it. That is pretty consistent with what we've been seeing a lot of times. It's a lot of this early pressure on the left-hand side of the map around that shield buff respawn. Junglers love to make some kind of early rotation over there because, I mean, otherwise there's not a whole lot for them to be doing. Like, these camps spawn pretty quickly, but specifically in this 1.5 to 2 minute section, there's not a whole lot else that you could be doing on the map just because, you know, still waiting on those roaming harpies to spawn, blue buff, speed buff, all that's still down. Gives you at least something to point your aggression toward, and just didn't find any home this time.
Jockin getting rather low here in the left side lane. Dazer and Toddy have put forward plenty of pressure with this combination of the Kanonos and the Sobek, but the Olympus bolts are holding their own in this left side lane. And I want to point our way towards solo here for a second. Just something that popped into my head. I mean, does Hedgehog have any potential on this right side of the lane with Listimics having Colossal Fury and Clear the Path, which is one of the, you know, the better dashes in the game for my money, and then Colossal Fury providing tons of healing and CC immunity to get away from Hedgehog's wrap? I mean, I just don't see much action happening on that right-hand side.
It's unlikely, and I should also actually point out that it's no longer healing in the Vomit ult, it's more the shielding that you're going to get in that Colossal Fury, and then you get lifesteal in addition. So will heal at least a little bit, provided he has a target to actually smack down on, but it's mostly the healing, and that's what makes it so much more difficult to deal with. You can't just build a Divine Ruin or something for Hedgehog and then go over there and shut down all that Colossal Fury healing. Pretty much, if Lestimix has the ult available, there's not a whole lot that Hedgehog can really do to bring him down. It's got to be, you know, Lestimix overextending out of position without cooldowns. It's got to be a couple of different things that have to go right in order for that to be a pretty worthwhile gank attempt for him. Vomit traditionally very safe, almost akin to the Guan Yu in that he has a very good dash, as you said, we'll see it right here, and he has that extended duration crowd control immune ultimate, which between those two things, man, it is so hard to gank this solo lane, and that's probably why Hedgehog has spent so much of his attention on the left-hand side of the map on, you know, both of these shield buff respawns, applying some pressure onto Toddy and Dazer in the dual lane, just looking for pretty much anywhere else that he can use his attention other than onto this tanky Vomit.
Well, level 5 for this Awilix, which means Gravity Surge, that ultimate that can yank down targets out of the sky, that's online. The knockup from Zany here could be a great setup tool for this combination of the jungle and the middle lane. A little bit of a level lead there for Zany as iPort ticks over to 7 here. Otherwise, pretty much parity across the map. Level 6 to level 5 for the ADC, 6 over there in the solo lane. Gold shapes up a slight lead for the Olympus Bolts, but just ticking over here for 5 minutes and with no first blood, that's just going to be mainly some good neutral farming on the map.
And EU playing slow, no surprise to anybody who's a longtime EU fan. We might see some fighting over these left mids, though.
3v3, knockup doesn't connect, Dazer blinks in. Oh, the knockup misses there, and the Gravity Surge doesn't come through. Maskill dropping so low, that death gaze from the Anubis, jumping away on Suku. Maskill able to escape, and Dazer now versus 3, still trying to secure those Harpies in the middle lane. Isn't able to do so. A lot burned there for the Tartarus Titans with very little to speak for it.
Yeah, and it's actually going to be more aggression over here on the left-hand side. Blink and the wrap there is going to be good onto Toddy, but no ult means that the damage is not quite there, so we'll not be able to get the kill on the back end either. And the Olympus Bolts kind of licking their wounds a little bit there because they get the beads off of Impox on the Baron. You said that maybe the knockup might have been off, but it was actually Baron having to use that in order to avoid that Gravity Surge ultimate. Granted, it was, you know, a little preemptive. I'm not sure if Mass was necessarily in range for specifically the pull onto the Baron. Ideally was looking for Hedgehog there as his target to pull back in, but either way, Impox could not allow himself to be pulled in, so had to invest that cooldown. And then the damage turnaround onto Mast was actually kind of insane. Like, we're seeing Doom Orb only now finished for Hedgehog. I think that if that one was online in full during that interaction, that probably is going to be your first blood onto Mast kill, but It's very fortunate timing for the Titans that didn't quite have the damage required to meet the threshold and ended up getting away with just about everybody alive.
You know, typically when we talk about a couple of glass cannons, we're looking at, you know, jungle versus jungle or mid versus mid. But
Sure.
for me, it's actually kind of a combination of Hedgehog and Zany, who, as you mentioned previously, are sort of playing the same role, or the same positioning at least. As iPort gets charged in, knocked up, yanked back in. Zany not able to close the distance there as beads were used by iPort to escape danger. Dazer, couple of cannons firing off, doesn't connect. Ooh, Hedgehog throwing down the grasping hands. Dazer might be in a spot of trouble here, locked down by the Ishtar, wrap off the mark and able to escape. So it's still zip to zip nil, just ticking past 7 minutes here into this one. But as I was saying, a couple of glass cannons just in different positions on the map.
And we're seeing the full value of at least the Tartarus Titans roster here, because they're not even needing to, use their glass cannon just yet. Zany hasn't really been necessary. It's been a lot of the threat of activation of Zany. It's more just Masskill and Dazer making it happen between the two of them. And they're forcing beads very consistently off of this mid-core for the Olympus Bolts. It is unfortunate that they found that knockup onto iPort instead of onto Impox. They do get the cooldown off of him, but gonna have to continue to play this aggressively and find all of these opportunities if they want to capitalize off of that. I do think that once you have an Awilish, especially something with the Jotun's Wrath alongside it, to get that incredible amount of cooldown reduction early on, this playstyle of constantly forcing the issue is definitely going to work out for him.
Dazer plucking Jockin, once again burning the beads. Like you said, Dazer and Masskill, this combination is just built to strip beads over and over. But Hedgehog, looking at Listimics here on the blue buff, Listimics doesn't quite know. Grasping hands are down. Here comes the Plague of Locusts, right up into that Colossal Fury. Listimics having to burn that one and losing the blue buff. That is a tough look for the Vomit on the right-hand side. It is a 4-man stack here for the Tartarus Titans. A 2-man dragon there from iPort. Dazer dropping into the ground just for some CC immunity. iPox also using that life of the party. It's once again just a wash on this left-hand side. Rotations come up short.
And we've been seeing, you know, I mentioned on the desk that Sobek not a popular character by any stretch of the imagination right now. I couldn't tell you the last time I've actually seen this god picked, but specifically into the Baron matchup, it is so good, man. We'll see a blink in here from Hedgehog, who will get the ult forced off of Zany and almost have the damage to kill him even through it, but yeah, man, Dazer on the Sobek is the ideal counter to this Baron, in my opinion. He's not only got the pluck to displace him, like we talked about previously, can also apply anti-heal, which is very important against a healing mage like Baron. Not to mention, anytime you see that Life of their Party ultimate, it's always a big concern of, you know, somebody's got to go in there, somebody's got to take that down so that we're not all getting pulled in by the crowd control. And that's typically the support's job. And, you know, Dazer has a very easy time just going under the water, kind of moving his way into that coffin and shutting down any of the crowd control that Impox can put out. It is just about the perfect counter to Baron in my mind, and he's putting it to very good execution so far.
Ticking over into 10 minutes in game number 1 here between the Titans and the Bolts. And once this Anubis gets this penetration item online, I'm looking at a Pyromancer, a Gold Fury. I mean, the shred alone on the side of the Olympus Bolts, this combination of Ishtar, Hedgehog, and iPort, that is plenty of burn, secure, pretty much everything you need to take down an objective early on. Jockin might be in a shredded danger here. Masskill off the mark there with that Moonlight Charge. Dazer wants to keep the action going there. Pluck offline. Wrapped up, grasping hands, but there. A Gravity Surge is going to connect with Impox, goes into that Life of the Party, crushing waves comes through, and Toddy with a couple of auto attacks walks in, says thank you very much, grabs first blood for the Tartarus Titans.
And in a pretty weird way for me, right? Because Impox, it's not like he didn't have beads available, he used beads just a little bit too late there. And I don't traditionally think of a Willish ult as, you know, one of those Naja-style ultimates where it's fairly quick and it's pretty forgivable if you end up missing the beads timing. I think a Willish ult is actually pretty simple to be able to get that one off cooldown, so a little surprised by that, but more action here.
Oh, Hedgehog knocked down by that Feather Step. Toddy once again with a couple of auto attacks. Puts the jungler in the ground. Jockin is taking on 3. Toddy and Masskill both relatively low HP. Impox and iPort are making the rotation. Dazer able to dash out. and iPort. Not enough time to close the distance with these low health targets on the Tartarus Titans. So an easy 2-0 piece here for Toddy, who allows his team to set him up, and he just knocks him down.
And you can tell that the Titans have the game plan in mind here of specifically shutting down Hedgehog, because as I mentioned earlier, Anubis is pretty good jungler, but only when he's ahead, only when he's on the front foot. He doesn't react particularly well and doesn't really like having people in his jungle. And the combination of Dazer and Maskill just kind of roaming around the jungle, grabbing either one of their two backliners between the ADC and the mid laner, and helping them out to apply that pressure, it's been pretty effective so far to make sure that Hedgehog is not comfortable. That was his first death there, but it's also the first time that we really saw him attempt to play aggressive on any part of the map was over here in the solo lane. They're kind of shutting down most of the aggression from him, which is traditionally where you would want to see some pretty effective early game play from this Anubis. I mean, the guy's got really good damage early on and late game. It doesn't really matter to him. His whole identity is just I kill you or you kill me. And so far it's been Hedgehog not really being able to play very aggressively, shutting down a lot of what he would ordinarily want to be doing.
The Olympus Bolts shoring up that gold lead just a little bit, taking a Pyromancer on the right-hand side there. And we kind of witnessed some of that shred I was talking about when that Pyromancer went down. The combination of iPort with the Dragons, the Cultivation of Tao, the Phoenix Fire, and then the Death Gaze, which is just... and Death Gaze is what, a top 3 DPS ability in the game? It's like Ymir Shards of Ice, weirdly enough, and then something like Death Gaze or something like that. The shred potential for these objectives is insane, and I think the Titans are going to have to genuinely have concern about sneaking Gold Furies, even Fire Giant, right? Even if the Bolts are behind a little bit, the potential to take objectives is certainly there.
Yeah, and it is worth noting, though, despite the fact that they have, as you mentioned, very good shred between the Death Gaze and the crit ADC, you've also got iPort that has a little bit of innate shred in his kit. All of the secure goes to Zany here.
Big time. All right, we got a 4-man stack, and this Gold Fury dropping rather low. Could be a coin flip.
Stolen.
Bolts able to take it down. Didn't look like the source from Jockin connected, so I'm curious as to what put the final touches on that Gold Fury. But
Grasping Hands.
Grasping Hands taking it down, says the analyst. 2 for 2. The Olympus Bolts grab 2 objectives and only 2 objectives taken, and extend that gold lead by about 2K here, a little under that, as we approach the midpoint here in this game.
And that feels wrong to me, man, because I was in the middle of saying that the Titans should, in theory, have by far the best secure on the map. That crushing wave should be pretty much unrivaled by any instance of damage that the Olympus Bolts can put out. Maybe you've got, like, late game, you're talking about, like, an ADC auto attack or some kind of ability from iPort or a Boulder, but at least for now, it should be easy.
No, Jockin locked down here by the combination of Maskill and Toddy, but Impox and iPort have made the rotation, life of the party, yanking in Toddy, no beads available, and Sager has made the rotation from solo just to put the ADC in the ground. Maskill able to escape, scratch that. Hedgehog is there for the rotation. Plague of Locust puts Maskill on the ground, and it's a quick swing here, a Gold Fury steal for the Bolts, and then a couple kills to put the Chaos team on top.
Yeah, and the Bolts are definitely, they have their game plan in mind as well, right? Like, it's very clear that they knew that that purple buff invade was going down. You don't traditionally see these solo laners rotate anywhere unless it's for a Gold Fury early on, but Sager was absolutely called over to that purple buff invade because they knew, you know, Master's going to be here. We might have Dazer here as well. It could be Toddy trying to invade. Enough players there that it's a worthwhile fight if Sager shows up and it goes convincingly. And the timing was perfect. I mean, everybody was there right as they needed to. They baited in the engage from Maskill, and Jockin stayed alive just long enough to allow for the rest of the Olympus Bolts to come in. That is a very uncharacteristic play of these solo laners that traditionally love to get their farm over here as much as possible. Very unselfish play from Sager, but it's a pretty good effect there, and that'll put the Bolts a little bit further ahead.
Speaking of farm, pretty much even across the map, even though the Bolts have accumulated a slight gold lead for themselves, for all intents and purposes, this game is tied up like a knot. I mean, 15 across the row there in the middle lane, supports dang near even. In fact, Toddy has a little bit of a level lead in this ADC lane here for the Tartarus Titans. It's essentially still a game waiting to be broken open. Typically, you see a big fight around the Gold Fury that usually lends momentum towards one side or the other, but hasn't quite happened yet. Maskill and Hedgehog kind of looking at each other a little bit crazy here in the middle lane. A couple of blinks, one from Maskill, one from Hedgehog. and Hedgehog able to escape. Scratch that. Blink not used by Maskill just to jump in there for Suku. That Blink's going to be online in 14 seconds. Lystimix has made the rotation here into this left-hand lane. Swords come out. Colossal Fury in return, but a teleport in by the Hercules is going to dissuade any more aggression from the side of the Titans.
Yeah, Maskill was wrapping around the back of that tower, trying to get something there, but look what happened while that aggression was going down on left. Immediately, Bolts know the respawn timer. They were the ones that did the Pyromancer last time, so they absolutely knew right when that one was coming back up. And once Sager came over to left and shut that down, they had no reason not to fight on right.
Ooh, Maskill taking plenty of damage, forced to use the beads. Dazer pulled into life of the party, has to lurk in those waters for the CC immunity, and just to escape. Sager off the mark there with the Earthbreaker. Maskill in a bit of a trepidatious position there. Maybe a little bit more safe positioning is going to be necessary as we head into the middle game. I mean, we've been talking about Hedgehog all game, but there's a reason this Anubis has the potential to put out game-changing damage in if Maskill or Zany is caught without beads as we approach the 20-minute mark here. I mean, it's instant death for any squishy for the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, same thing for the Bolts, though, right? Like,
sure,
Zany can absolutely make one crushing wave, and that could change the course of a team fight pretty much instantaneously. And it's really, in my eyes, on the Bolts to make something happen here, because I do think that the longer this game goes on, I mean, you've got the Awilish in the jungle, which doesn't scale particularly well, but I'm also not really convinced that they're going to be able to shut down Zany on this Evo. They don't have the best tools required to deal with him. It's traditionally your jungler and your support that are responsible for really preventing this character from being able to do what he wants to do with some pretty good long-range crowd control and some effective damage, but I mean, it's pretty much all or nothing for the Olympus Bolts team. They don't have a lot of, like, an Athena taunt into, like, some follow-up damage. They pretty much got to get on top of them.
Gold Fury getting started up here by the Titans. A brief power play as Lystimix has made the rotation and Sager's following behind. Swords out from Jockin early on to kick this fight off. Impox falling quite low. Autos connecting from Toddy to take out the support. No life of the party used there. Dazer plucking onto Sager. Might not be the target you want to yank in there, Dazer, but surrounded by 5 members of the Tartarus Titans. Sager's going to be just fine with those heals coming out from the Hercules. And back to the Gold Fury, the Titans go.
Port is low. It is still Jockin here. Hedgehog is coming back in. They could still contest.
Primal Fury, half HP. Crits coming out from Toddy. Sager healing up. Hedgehog blinking in. Knocking down Dazer with that Death Gaze. And chunking Zany. In the meantime, Jockin falling to the combination of Maskill and Lystimix. And this Primal Fury is going to be aggressed on once again by the Tartarus Titans, getting juggled over and over. Sager off the mark there with that driving strike. Primal Fury once again picked up. But Sager, so many heals, so much disruption as the Tartarus Titans finally turn their attention to the solo laner. Up into the Colossal Fury goes Lystimix, chasing down iPort, who meanwhile takes out Zany in the backline.
And he just barely had the damage required, but now the Bolts are coming back, actually. Hedgehog is off of respawn and is back in here on Mast.
Oh, Maskill forced away there, and now the Olympus Bolts have a prime opportunity to take out this Primal Fury that was initially aggressed upon by the Tartarus Titans. And shout out to iPort there for making Zany, step forward a little bit too hard. Great cultivation of Dow combined with that first fire ability puts the mid laner in the ground. And without Zany, the Tartarus Titans really don't have any kind of consistent secure.
And it's mostly on Sager there that prevents that from even going down for the Titans, much less going in favor of the Bolts. He bought so incredibly much time by just walking around that pit. And even without the boulder, just the knowledge at any point that Fury can get dragged all over the place. They've also got to keep an eye on Hedgehog, who is off to the right-hand side. They just disrupted barely enough to allow that to not go down in favor of the Tartarus Titans. I mean, it was everybody low HP. Even Toddy was forced to tank that at several different times. And because of that, he was a lot more uncomfortable with Sager kind of weaving his way around, trying to find some kind of push there. Because if he does get pushed and stunned into some kind of damage fall from Hedgehog, that is immediately a play that will no longer work for the Titans. So an excellent job of the solo laner and the jungler of forcing the disruption, even after the Titans got a pretty decent engage on the front end. I mean, they did pick Impox pretty much without a whisper, but it just took so long to bring him down and so much longer in addition to start getting that health bar low on the Gold Fury that the Bolts just barely managed to stall long enough. And now, despite the fact that the Tartarus Titans were the ones playing aggressive, now it's the Bolts in the lead.
Pick onto Hedgehog here, forced to use the beads early. Lystimix up into the Colossal Fury in a Death Gaze as Hedgehog finds death himself. Sager being chased down now. Lystimix wailing away in that Vomit ultimate, doing more damage, honestly, than I assumed Sager was going to take. But with Hedgehog down, an opportunity here perhaps for the Tartarus Titans to look at this Pyromancer. Zany clearing out middle lane, creating a little bit of pressure there. Push some minions under tower. Pyromancer may not be the call, though. The Tartarus Titans looking at the Fire Giant here. The Olympus Bolts kind of caught with their pants down.
Oh, Sager
has rotated in behind. One big driving strike could change this game. Looking for Zany, catches two. The backliners for the Tartarus Titans yanked in by Hercules. The Dragons come out from iPort, and the Titans are on full retreat.
The Stimix dashing away as well. Fire Giant is still pulled, though, Dimes.
Oh, it's going so low. Masskill finds Impox support down. Fire Giant still leaves iPort, takes out Lastymix. iPort at a quarter HP. Sager able to peer for the mid laner. Fire Giant goes down to the Tartarus Titans, and Zany picks up iPort on the back end.
Dazer and Masskill just barely managed to create enough space that Zany and Toddy can stay in there. It was an excellent engage once again from Sager to stall that objective and give Bolts the control of that pit, but they just focused too much on the kills, man. They were trying to get this kill into Dazer, and they just might still find it. Death Gaze will be enough, but at the end of the day, it's still 1 for 3 and Fire Giant, so 2 members with that FG buff still intact for the Titans. And it was just Zany and Toddy, man. They walked off to the right hand of that pit, and they just had all the space in the world to work with because, you know, Masskill, it was Dazer attracting all that attention. There was a full-on suicide play from the two of them, but it was very worthwhile because with all that attention on them as opposed to the backliners, nobody was paying attention to the fact that Zany and Toddy were just grabbing that 1 HP Fire Giant, bringing that one down. It's still the Bolts in the lead, at least for the time being, but with these 2 members with FG, they could still look to make some kind of play here. Talking towers might be able to go down here. You've still got tier 2 to deal with in both side lanes. At least that middle tower, that tier 1 tower in the mid lane should be going down in favor of the Titans here. They've got enough of a boon off of that FG on those 2 members that they should still be the ones in the driver's seat.
Tartarus Titans and Olympus Bolts, game number 1 here, 23 minutes on the clock. Slight gold lead here for the Olympus Bolts. I say slight, it's to the tune of about 3K or so. And at 23 minutes, it's not insignificant, but it's also not the lead you love to build. If you were the Olympus Bolts, it's the Tartarus Titans taking on this tier 1 tower in the middle lane. Barriers go down, but it is a full 5v5 stack here in the middle lane. The Olympus Bolts are not going to let this tower go for absolutely free. Dazer not in the best position to grab a pluck here. Hedgehog locks down the Sobek. Sager pushing forward here for the Olympus Bolts. Hedgehog caught in the backline. Lastymix already in the ultimate, wailing away on the jungler. iPort using the ultimate preemptively there. And Lastymix just walks under the tier 2 tower for free and walks down Hedgehog. Zany a little bit of a happy trigger there with the crushing wave. Probably unnecessary, but would rather play safe than not. Dazer knocked up, knocked back, leapt over between 5 members of the Olympus Bolts, and just, flat out of position. Dazer had absolutely no reason to be there and pays for it.
Yeah, and it looked like he was trying to set up something, like maybe bait somebody for it. It did work. They did kill Hedgehog, but, after that dive from Lastymix, which, by the way, criminal that he is diving the Anubis in the tier 2 tower, surrounded by 3 people, and walking out with his life and the kill. But now it's going to be this Gold Fury actually dives.
And the Gold Fury is going to go down. Who's it going to go to? The Bolts take it out. iPort knocked up in the backline. Same thing goes for Jockin. But Masskill not enough to finish off one. Jockin finally goes down. Masskill with the shield from the Bloodforge. Not going to be enough. But meanwhile, iPort also drops into the ground. Lastymix, Zany, and Toddy combining.
Hedgehog
Ganging up on Sager, who's healing, who's tanky. Zany takes out the double kill. The solo laner goes down. Hedgehog back online. But not enough to stop the aggression here from the Tartarus Titans.
And such a shame, too, after an incredible defense there from the Bolts, who didn't want to give up this middle tier 1 tower and had, honestly, Dimes, a hell of a fight to actually hang on to that one, forcing out the crushing wave from Zany, making sure that they got a good combo onto Masskill. Sager pulled him in and almost instant killed him, so he wasn't even a factor in that engagement under the tower, to still end up losing this one anyway, and the tier 2, and also the Gold Fury. That's a hell of a swing for the Tartarus Titans, who otherwise looked kind of out of it in that fight, man. Like, Lastymix got the good engage onto Hedgehog, but past that point, there wasn't a whole lot to write home about, so at least the fact that they managed to secure those towers and get that Gold Fury is something that they can say they got for this Fire Giant and essentially bring this game back to parity when it's mostly been the Bolts and the aggressors.
Fire Giant, speaking of which, coming back online here. All ultimates available for the Olympus Bolts. Toddy's waiting on that Wild Hunt to come back online in about, 15, 20 seconds or so. Maybe even a little bit less. Fire Giant up here. Both these squads, a little bit lacking on the vision here. I mean, especially at 25 minutes with a Wheelish and Hedgehog lurking around, it's going to be vitally important to know where the junglers, heck, even where Sager is. I mean, we saw in that last Fire Giant fight, Sager wrap around with the back-end teleport and shove the two backliners of the Tartarus Titans forward. Going to need some major wardage here for both the Titans and the Bolts to not get caught out.
Oh, they're going to be fighting for it here, but a good push onto Dazer.
Oh, Dazer in a tough spot, able to dash out, a pull in onto Sager, not the target you want there. Meanwhile, Listimic's doing what he does in the backline, wailing away on
Come on!
Again, a literal repeat of what happened in the middle lane. Gets out scot-free. Zany in the middle of nowhere, crushing wave out. Beads able to save him there from those sunny swords. And Jockey doesn't find anything with that Ishtar ultimate. Zany should be just thanking his lucky stars he's alive.
Masskill gets pulled in by the Sager knockup, though, and we'll have to keep running. There are more bolts on the way. Good push there. Will at least stun him out, but should be able to, jump over the next Earthbreaker that would have pulled him back in. So the bolts lose Hedgehog, but get a decent engage onto the rest of the Tartarus Titans, and despite the fact that they lose their jungler, I guess for free. I mean, I guess Listimix can just run this guy down, and there's not a whole lot that looks like the bolts can do about it. The Titans do manage to save enough people that shouldn't be an FG here from the bolts.
Well, Dazer yanking in Sager, who once again is pulled in by the gravity surge, but the Tartarus Titans don't have enough damage to follow up on this TP Hercules. Gotta find a different target. Titans, Listimix yanked in by Sager. Zany, follow up here. Once again, the pluck onto Sager. Titans in the backline getting smashed by the dragons there. Sager finally falls. Dazer looking to be the return kill, though. Jockin picks that one up. Listimix forced out, but is going to be pulled back in by Impox. Perfect Colossal Fury there for the CC immunity. And wailing away on three members of the Bolts is Listimix, who doesn't have the healing, doesn't have the tank, but Zany coming through with the crushing wave. Gets return kill with a big old crit from Jockin. Masskill picks up Impox. Right now it is a 3-for-3 wash for both these squads.
And Toddy's still looking for more onto iPorts. Has Masskill with him. They could still hunt down this Yu Wong.
Leaping in is Masskill. Jockin with the ultimate back online, but a feather step to avoid it. iPort gets locked down by a couple of crits, and it is a full-on deicide here. The Tartarus Titans take out the Olympus Bolts, but what can they do with it?
That feels so unfair for Hedgehog, man. Like, they forced out Listimix's ult with the Baron ult, and I thought that that was just going to be the end of it. And I was about to say, wow, Hedgehog is probably very happy with the fact that he doesn't have to contend with the Vomit ult in this fight. And then Listimix goes, it's close enough, and then he just smacks him anyway. Like, what is the guy supposed to do? He uses his only tool to fight back, which is the Death Gaze, and immediately gets flattened by a Blink ult from Zany. Titans are playing very well.
Titans playing well, playing on this Fire Giant here. Teleport in here from Listimix. It's going to be Sager with the boulder over the wall. A little bit preemptive. Fire Giant goes down to the Tartarus Titans. Maybe a little bit more here, too. Sager's got plenty of speed, though, with that Shield of Regrowth online. Plenty of heals as well. So the Tartarus Titans grab the Fire Giant off of a deicide of the Olympus Bolts. And with the first gold lead of this game, the Tartarus Titans are looking to siege down these right-hand and left-hand Tier 2 towers.
It's probably going to be a Primal Fury fight first from the looks of it. And the Bolts actually do seem to want to show up to this one. They've got 3 members on the scenery looking to contest. It's going to be Sager on the backside looking for some more shenanigans, but it does seem like they know he's here.
Now Sager looking at Masskill. Isn't interested in all at Dazer, but here comes Zany. No blink available for another 15 seconds for the Habwa, so the Olympus Bolt's going to have to make something happen. Once again, Listimix kicking things off in the backline on the Hedgehog, up into the Death Gaze, and Bobbin wailing away on Hedgehog. Takes him out for the 3rd time. Sager dropping low to the backline of the Tartarus Titans. Masskill and Listimix teaming up on Impox. Knocked up, knocked back, and knocked down into the ground. The Baron Samadhi loses his life. What is the answer to Listimix just wailing away on this poor Anubis?
You're asking a good question and one that I don't have an answer for, man. obviously the Bolts don't have the answer either, because they've picked, like, just about everything they can think of to deal with this guy. Like, they've got the erosion available for Impox that shuts down some of the shielding that Listimics would be getting in that Colossal Fury. They've got the Sunder available as well. They've got a crit ADC that also has a Deathbringer upgrade that prevents some of that shielding. Right. It is just so difficult to shut this guy down when, as production's hovering here, he's got the Hasten Katana to just stick to Hedgehog no matter where he goes. He could even have a sprint, and that's not going to be enough to get away from Listimics because he's just outright faster and doesn't have an auto attack penalty. They're going to have to find some kind of different approach to these fights, and it's got to be more than likely the Bolts engaging onto the Titans if they want to avoid having this Listimics Colossal Fury constantly threatening Hedgehog, who frankly hasn't really been allowed to play in this game.
Tartarus Titans hovering around this left side Phoenix after taking down that left side tier 2 tower. Changing their minds though, deciding the better of it. Maybe this Phoenix isn't in the cards at 31 minutes. Maybe take out some towers, use this Fire Giant to clear the path, if you will, for these Phoenixes to go down. Thank you so much. I work hard to anyways. Listimics, Toddy combining here for a little bit of a red buff invade. Right-hand side, tier 2 tower, the last remaining tower for the Olympus Bolts. Otherwise, you're just staring at 3 Firebirds and 1 Titan between the Tartarus Titans finding game number 1 here over the Olympus Bolts.
And it's a little bit slow, right? Like, I feel like the Titans probably could have tried to force their way into that base. They must have been looking for some kind of power spikes. You can see now Leader's Cowl actually online for Toddy. Couple of very core upgrades for them there. Kinsai now available also for Listimics. If you thought that he was a problem before, wait until this guy's got a real full-fledged power item to deal with this Hedgehog Anubis. And honestly, I feel like it's a pretty good spot for the Titans. And I know that sounds like it should be pretty... Yeah, believe it or not, right? But I just mean, I think that even though they didn't play very quickly there, I think that developing their gold lead, making sure they get their power spikes online is probably going to be the better play than trying to force it in. Originally, my thought was, wow, they've got full health bars, they got Fire Giant, they've got all their relics. Why are they not going in? Well, I mean, if you're waiting for these core power spikes, if you need all those starter upgrades, I think that you're much happier to wait even for the next Fire Giant, which is going to be Enhanced Fire Giant, by the way, due to spawn in just a couple more seconds. It's going to be a much more important fight for the Titans to take here, and I don't think that the Bolts can really afford to give this one up.
Well, the Olympus Bolts, per their MO this entire game, not playing on the back foot, pressing forward into the objective, not giving up anything for free here. Sager leading the way. Excavate off the mark there. Earthbreaker, I should say, on Dazer. Listimics wrapping around the back line. He cannot do this for a 4th time. No, Sager dropping low. Listimics and Masskill in the back line. The Olympus Bolts being forced out with Sager dropping low. Listimics forcing it on Hedgehog. But meanwhile, Masskill goes down for the Tartarus Titans, but who cares because the Olympus Bolts are on full retreat as Listimics takes his Colossal Fury show to Impox. Dash in by Dazer and knockup. Toddy finds the 9th kill of this game, and Masskill is more than happy to trade his life for 3 members of the Olympus Bolts and a Fire Giant.
This is so tough, man. Like, this is starting to look like there isn't an answer in the gameplay for this game number 1, and this is something you gotta look for game number 2. It's gonna be Sager and the Fire Giant bit here, though. Dimes looking to make something happen.
Oh, Fire Giant dropping low. Here's the Wild Hunt. Sager falling low as well. A few ticks of damage away from death. Not going to have the catch-up. The Tartarus Titans are just slightly slower than that hastened Hercules there with the great heals. So Enhanced Fire Giant going to go on 4 members of the Tartarus Titans. Masskill still in the grayscale for another 10 seconds. Minions pushing up the middle lane here. Listimics taking up this Phoenix. Dash in by Dazer, forcing out the ultimate and the beats here from iPort. Middle lane Bird is going to drop. Tartarus Titans turning their attention to this left side lane here. Hedgehog, Impox, and Jockin coming back online here. Sager, the recipient of a couple big crits from Toddy, almost falling down there. And now Tartarus Titans are going to be forced out here by the respawns of the Olympus Bolts.
Almost got that 180 pluck, and that would have been kind of sick if we managed to land that onto Sager's driving strike. But it's the writing's on the walls here for me, Dimes. There is no answer, it would seem, from the Olympus Bolts for this Vahman, and I think that we saw the significant effect that it can have there, not only in the 1v1, but also the fact that nobody's dealing with Zany. So we got a perfect engage there with the blink crushing wave. And honestly, Zany's been kind of underrepresented in these team fights because the fact that nobody is paying attention to him at all because all 5 members of the Olympus Bolts are so concerned with, am I going to get plucked into some kind of mass kill ultimate? Where's Listimics? Is he hunting Hedgehog? Do we need to deal with that? Nobody's really paying attention to this Hebo. He's kind of been able to free cast in all these fights. Granted, it's been going so well, he hasn't really been needed up until that last one. But he got the ideal engage there just because he's going relatively unnoticed in these fights. And I really do think that it's starting to look like the Bolts just need to start turning their attention to game number 2 here. It seems a little bit doom and gloom to say that out loud, but they've tried several different approaches to these fights, just shy of fully engaging onto the Tartarus Titans before they can get their fight going in their favor. I think that's pretty much the only opportunity you've got left if you're the Bolts. You've kind of got to shut down this Listimics Vomit before it can get on top of you, or at the very least, find some kind of engage for Hedgehog before he dies.
I mean, as we saw in that initial engagement, the Olympus Bolts have a pretty significant defenses.
What is he doing?
Just diving on a Hedgehog, almost takes out the Anubis in the backline under Titan. I mean, just in the Phoenix. But Listimics draws the attention of the Olympus Bolts in the backline, and meanwhile, the Titans walk up and take the left-hand Phoenix for literally free. I mean, that was ridiculous. Listimics just walks around, almost kills Hedgehog under Titan, allows the rest of his squad to get the left-hand bird. Okay, I've been thinking about it. Kaizo, I know what the Bolts can do. I know what their answer is.
Okay.
They need 3 pairs of beats per person.
Oh, okay. And that'll stop them
just
from getting their skull bashed in by this guy?
Well, no, because I think they're so worried about being like, plucked, knocked up, comboed that their Listimics is able to wrap around, like you said. But if each member of the Bolts has 3 pairs of beads, then they can turn their attention to the vomit.
So hypothetically speaking, all of the Olympus Bolts are crowd control immune for the rest of the game.
For the remainder of the game, yes.
I don't even know if that helps them, Dimes. Like, I do think that mass kill is still a problem for them, but even if they are immune to all crowd control and do not have to worry about mass kill, there's still the blink engage they have to deal with from Zany.
Sure.
Toddy has been largely unchecked in this game, and
huge crits.
Listimics is literally diving fountain on Hedgehog, and there is no answer for him. I'm not sure what crowd control immunity would really do for him. And now Listimics has a 3k defense pot for even more mitigations, even more survivability. He's got 3.5, call it 4 damage items in his build. The guy's a demon. Like, you have to address this in picks and bans phase times, because unless the Bolts are just going to go for some kind of insane unhinged blink engage here, I'm not sure what their game plan's going to be.
Oh, the Olympus Bolts refusing to play defensively. Listimics wrapping around the backline. I mean, we know what's going to happen. Listimics is just going to wrap around.
Name a more
iconic
iconic
fake
duo.
jungler. Listimics and smashing Hedgehog in the face. Enhanced Fire Giant spawning once again. The Tartarus Titans hovering around this FG pit. Doesn't even look like the Titans want to start up the objective. Just looking for a pluck or a bait of some kind here on
Hedgehog,
a member of the Olympus Bolts, or Hedgehog, right? I mean, once Hedgehog goes down, this is a free Fire Giant, Listimics on the left side, and you can see how far back this Anubis is playing. I mean, literally, he's a jungler playing like a mid laner or an ADC right now. Maskill looking at him, though. Listimics onto Sager. Sager is not going to wink at all on that Vamana, though. Plucked in is Sager. Crits coming in on the face of the Hercules. And Iport using that Dragon's ultimate preemptively, lurking in the waters is Dazer. Hedgehog in the backline. Listimics has found him up into the Colossal Fury. And Maskill gets the finishing touches on the Anubis. Listimics wailing away, and Iport in the backline. Meanwhile, the rest of his Tartarus Titan squad shoving forward. But Impox looking at Toddy. Wild Hunt comes out. Crits are coming through as well. A little bit of healing. Maskill finds a second onto Iport. Toddy finds one. The mid laner Zany finds one. And only Sager here to defend against the might of the Tartarus Titans. Who needs Enhanced Fire Giant when you can just kill the entire team, walk down the middle lane, take down 2 out of the 3 Phoenixes, walk into the throne room, and take game number 1 here from the Olympus Bolts. Crushing waves come through on the Titan, falling down low, plug back in. Who needs it? Game number 1 goes the way of the Titans.
And it was not close, man. Make no mistake about that. There just was no answer from the Bolts there. And it really does seem to me it's just a draft diff. I don't think that that's a gameplay diff. I don't think it's a skill issue. I do think that those are two fairly evenly matched teams. I mean, when things were going well for the Bolts, it looked pretty good. It's just a matter of they didn't have an answer for the Vomit. And they spent so long, they spent so many engagements hunting for that answer to this pick that nobody else even saw any attention for the rest of that game. You had both of your backliners for the Tartarus Titans basically completely unchecked.
Right. I mean, you mentioned it in game, but Listimics is going to have to be taking care of the Vamana.
Yep.
I mean, ridiculous amounts of damage coming through there from the Vamana. Mass Kill was just an absolute obnoxious pest, right? Not even like
fair.
the main thing. I'd love to check out these damage numbers to see what Listimics put up in Mass Kill and Zany, especially Zany, because like you said, I mean, the free casting all day long. Same thing with Toddy. I feel like we called his name a bunch, but 10, 1, and 10, Toddy was just chucking out crits, chucking out auto attacks. Of course, found the first 2 kills of the game. I mean, just ridiculous all around from the Tartarus Titans.
And that's one of those games where it feels amazing to be a backliner for the Tartarus Titans because you are under basically no threat. The guy who is designed to kill you, their jungler, is prevented from playing the game pretty much at all, at which point you are just unchecked, following up off of a Sobek pluck into a Willisholt, into Hebo knockup. Like, they could literally just sit there completely still without moving their WASD and still be fairly safe in these fights and get all the damage off that they would have wanted. I think that with the way that Masked Kill played and the way that the Sobek combined with that Awilish, we need to remember how effective that was in the early game. It's very easy to say, you know, Listimics on the Vomit was the only issue, and in the late game team fights, that did seem to be the case. But don't forget that Awilish Sobek combination, before we even saw the Vomit at all on the map, was still enough to make a very significant impact on the landscape of that game and put them in a very commanding position to get to the point where Listimics could start bashing in some skulls.
Kaizo, I'm kind of surprised you know what WASD is, Mr. Controller Boy. The Bolts certainly going to have to go back to the drawing board with the composition. The Tartarus Titans take game number 1 of this best of 3 set here in the SMITE Challenger Circuit. Game 2 coming your way in just a sec. Stick around.
just wanna keep it going, like the night is never over. From tonight until the morning, I just wanna get to know you. I just want to, baby, get to know you. If you want to, I just want to, baby, get to know you. I just want to, baby, get to know you. Get to know you. Get to know you. Every day's another chance. I don't need to keep you waiting. You're the best I've ever had. No one else can take your place, yeah. And I think that you should know. I wanna feel you so close.
Looking good. And Kaizo, we just witnessed the Tartarus Titans take on the Bolts in what was a pretty convincing win.
Yeah, it's hard to characterize it as anything else because, you know, the early game was dominated by that Willish Sobek combo, and then we could not take our eyes off of Listimix in the late game because he was quite literally carrying the fight by himself at times. I mean, the backline for the Titans, they did their job. They absolutely, you know, they clocked in, clocked out, but Listimix was the one making the show in that one.
All right, let's head into picks and bans for game number 2. We have some compositional changes that certainly need to be made here, Kaizo. What is your number one look here besides the Vamana, obviously?
Besides the Vamana, I do think that it might be worth paying some attention to this Willish because Mast looked incredibly comfortable on it. It was something that drove the early game and really led to a lot of the shenanigans that the Titans were allowed to get up to. I think that if it weren't for the fact that they had to pay so much attention to Mast and the Sobek at all times, they could have potentially looked to make some kind of adjustment in the middle game and maybe gotten Hedgehog into a more comfortable position. But because there was so many different threats on the Titans, it really felt like an insurmountable obstacle. So I think that the Vamana absolutely 100% needs to be picked or banned by the Bolts. Sure. However, I do think that the Willish is probably number 2 in that conversation.
Bolts kicking things off here. Mercury and Yamoja. Titans answering back with the Aphrodite and the Marty. So we got a couple of bands to work with here. Could be the Hercules. I mean, Sager played great on the Hercules, and Hercules one of the top picks in the game. Wouldn't be a surprise to see that one taken off the table or even picked here. The Vamana certainly has to go here. Listimix cannot be allowed to run that one back. And the Titans, I mean, Apuash still on the board. No, it's going to be the Thor banned out here. And the Bolts have plenty of options for their number 1 pick. Could go the way of the Habwa, the ADC, could go back into that Hercules. I mean, sky's the limit here for the Bolts.
I think that Habwa might actually be my pick here. It looks like they're at least considering the Ishtar instead. Taking away the Habwa from the Zany in the mid lane might not be a bad shot for the Bolts, just because, you know, it is a very similar playstyle to what Hedgehog wanted to do on the Anubis jungle in game number 1, so it's not much of a mentality switch for him there. It's still basically the same pick, just a little bit of a different playstyle, not to mention being able to get a quote-unquote 4th ban by taking that one away from Zany. Wouldn't have been a bad look, but I do think that Ishtar, certainly, if your ADC is more comfortable on one or the other between the Kurnos and the Ishtar, that's often something that teams are willing to prioritize over, you know, just about anything else.
Kurnos, the response to the Ishtar as per usual, and then the ever-powerful Hercules locked in. Can't wait to see Listimix pilot that one. And once again, the Bolts kind of have their choice here. It looks like a Maui being hovered. And here's the Neath that we saw banned out in game number 1.
Yeah.
So I guess a Bolt special here as that Neath is looking to flex into the middle lane.
Seems so, and it's definitely one that I'm not used to seeing, and they will actually go ahead and lock this one in. So, physical items right now are not in a spot where I would typically consider to be a good situation for physical ADCs in the mid lane. I think that stuff like Marty is perhaps an exception to that rule just because of how strong the kid is, but I'm not sure that this, like, the Bluestone Pendant, the Titan's Bane, the Crusher, the Heartseeker, all that stuff that you would traditionally want underneath is really in a spot where I would prefer that over a mid laner, like a traditional mid laner, I should say, like a mage,
Sure.
for example. Should be very specific about that, Dimes. But crit, very strong right now, could have double crit ADCs. It's a couple of different ways that they could play this, but honestly, they clearly know this a lot better than I do if they're valuing the Neath this highly, so I'm very excited to see what kind of answers they have.
And I'm excited that Maskill is locking in this Awelish for a second game in a row here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not like you're really even trading up the Vimana for a solo laner who doesn't have a knockup, because Hercules still has that Earthbreaker, right? So you're losing Clear the Path, but you're gaining another great displacement tool and another opportunity for Awelix to use that Gravity Surge on an opponent. Fenrir and Ao Kwang, I haven't seen him in quite a bit. Couldn't even say his name there.
It's a revelation.
AK taken off the board there by the Titans. And Horus and Habwa wiped off the map there for the Olympus Bulls. So the Titans looking to run it right back. I mean, essentially running the exact same composition as game number 1 with the Sobek cover here. Just swapping out the powerful Vamon for the also powerful Hercules here.
Definitely.
And with Habwa off the table, they're going to have to find a new mid laner as well. Does one stick out in your mind as someone you can plug and play into this composition?
I don't know, man. I mean, you've got kind of your pick of the litter here. It's going to be something that can play aggressively, ideally, something akin to the Hebo. Obviously, with that one banned away, not going to be an option, but like an Agni or something might fit very well here. Some good long-range crowd control, good follow-up damage, capable of playing aggressively and still having a disengage option. Maybe an Agni Oath, something like that, but realistically, with this core that the Titans have, I'm not sure how significant the mid lane pick is going to be, because it's going to be, once again, just Maskill walking around the map with this Sobek in tow and just looking for trouble.
I'm Cthulhu, double Guardian, double Hunter, pretty typical. My gut's not loving the Cirquette pick. I'd love you to talk me through it once we're in game, as the Agni's being hovered here. Just a staple in the middle lane for what seems like 10 years here, but has certainly come back into his own with the rise of mages in the middle lane. Titans aren't quite convinced of that lock-in. Agni's going to round out the draft here for the Titans, but walk me through this Cirquette. We're going to head into game here in just a second, but, I mean, Cirquette's all about mobility, jumps, leaps, things like that. Awelix shuts all of that down. I mean, I just feel like the Bolts could have taken maybe a safer jungler.
Right. It does feel like it is kind of begging the question for Maskill of what you're going to do against this Cirquette, because it is, like you said, pretty positive matchup, I would argue, for Maskill over this Cirquette. Awelish being able to pull her out of the jump obviously makes it so that, you know, engage and even escape can be a little bit more difficult for Hedgehog on the Cirquette. And for my money, it seems like this is a tool that is being used to shut down this Hercules. Listimics in game number 1 was the MVP, granted on a different pick, but they definitely don't want to get him off to the same start. Being able to deal some true damage to him, good lockdown, shutting down all that healing. It has the tools required to deal with the Hercules. It's just, you got to go through this gauntlet of this Awelish Sobek in order to get to this guy. I think it's going to be a tough task for Hedgehog, but he seems up to it, man. He's the one that asked for it.
The Olympus Bolts totally turning the page here with a brand new composition, and the Tartarus Titans running it back from game number 1 as we head into game number 2 here of your morning, or I guess morning in America, of your pre-SPL SMITE Challenger circuit here. Olympus Bolts, Tartarus Titans, the Bolts looking to fight back into a game number 3 here. As I'm curious to see Impox play a more traditional support Guardian character over the Baron Samadi of last game, who was not very impactful.
Not very impactful, not for want of trying. I mean, Baron wants to play on the front foot. I do kind of draw some parallels to Athena, where the CC isn't as reliable, but it's like, you know where they're going to be, and you can reliably put some follow-up damage off of it. I do think that it's traditionally a pick-oriented style, where you'd ideally like to bully some kind of frontliner, and it's not really an option that they got. I do think that Maui definitely has some pretty strong tools for specifically counter-engage, stage, which it seems like the Titans are very willing to play on the front foot. So having something that can, play off of the back foot, I think is probably going to be to their benefit. But it is going to be a vastly different play style. Not as much damage, no healing in the kit either. Also significantly tankier just inherently by being a Guardian. It's going to be a bit of a switch up, but I think that Impox has it handled.
Impox yoinked back in by Dazer, and I mean, this is just a repeat of the duo lane from last game. Tartarus Titans taking some damage though. Toddy slowed down here. Impox slamming back down into the Kronos. Dash away. Beats forced as well. Could have been an early first blood there, as in game number 1, it took several minutes to find the first kill on the map. But Toddy's got to watch it here, as this combination of Impox and Jockin is an incredibly strong and high-pressure duo lane. Meanwhile, the classic duo of mid and jungle in the middle lane are squaring off as well. And it's going to be pressure all around the map. I mean, we saw the Olympus Bolts pressing the issue time after time in game number 1, even from behind. So I'm not going to be surprised if they're just as aggressive with this brand new composition.
And the Bolts with the Season 9 Worlds duo lane. This is the duo lane that won Worlds pretty consistently in all these matchups, regardless of who got the picks, honestly. See Maskkill fighting with Hedgehog in the jungle, but no ultimate just available quite yet, so won't be able to pull back in. This is pretty consistent with what you're going to see, man. If you've got Horrific Emblem in the duo lane alongside a Blink for Dazer, it's always going to favor the team that has that team fight relic as opposed to the Blink, which, is good for looking for picks, but as far as duo lane fighting, not so great.
Maskkill caught between 3 members of the Bolts here. No stun, but locked down by the Maui. Pulled back in. Maskkill with a sliver of HP. He's going to go down for kill number 1. Toddy returns it, make it 1-for-1. Forced out here. Dazer also between 3, but no more lockdown for the Olympus Bolts. So the Bolts snag first blood for themselves. But Toddy, once again, finds the first kill for the Tartarus Titans in return.
What a weird fight there, too, because Mask surely must have had the information that there were more people coming. It looked like he got caught off guard somehow, but I'm pretty sure that, they pathed across vision. There's no way dual lane didn't know that they were on the way over. Still looked to play aggressive. Just a little bit surprised by that, because I don't think that they really ever end up winning that fight when Mask gets surrounded quite like that. And a very early first blood dimes is a much different pace than we saw in game number 1. And that should be favoring Maskkill. A faster paced game is usually going to favor the Awilish player, but considering he's the one that gets first blooded and instead the kill goes over to the enemy jungler, who has a bit of a vengeance after the treatment that he received in game number 1. Hedgehog is likely to play pretty hot in this one.
Kind of curious to me, as Zany takes out Hedgehog in the middle lane.
In red buff.
Did Hedgehog step forward there looking for the invade? Curious there from the jungler. So far, both of the junglers from both the Bolts and the Titans have made some curious positioning decisions in this game. And a 2-to-1 kill advantage here for the Tartarus Titans just 3.5 minutes into the game. I was just about to say, actually tease it up perfectly, kind of curious that this game is so much faster than last game, when the Tartarus Titans were more than happy to drag it out, push it a little bit further, allow their carries to get online. And the Olympus Bolts pushing the pedal as well here, pre-5 minutes, with a couple of ADCs that would also love a couple of items to get online before they really start hard engaging.
I would argue, as we see in Neathult, might be a fight over here in dual lane, channeled, and will actually go down onto the Kronos, but considering the fact that Dazer steps in front shouldn't be a big issue. I will actually argue that these teams are, composition-wise, a little bit better each at fighting early game than the previous game that we saw. Serket and Awilish, some of our most premier early game junglers, alongside stuff like the Thanatos, whereas last game we had, a little bit more scaling required, like the the Hebo, the Anubis, all of that stuff can fight early, but would prefer to get some items online. That's the value that you get from these physical mid laners. They are ready to go from minute 1.
Maskkill ready to go for minute 4 here, wrapping around in the duo lane. Knock up on Impox, yank back in as well. Here's the pluck, and Maskkill puts down the support for the Olympus Bolts. A great rotation, and even better CC there. There's nothing more satisfying in SMITE competitive play than watching a well-communicated, well-chained CC combination, and we got treated to one there.
And not to mention perfect target prioritization there.
Yep.
All of your casual and ranked junglers are probably going on the backliner there because, that's your job, is you you kill the backliner, but clearly Maskill understood there that, you know, forcing the beads off of Jockin is something at least, but it's much more worthwhile to get the kill bounty off of Impox and get a little bit of gold for himself.
Oh, Hedgehog knocked down here by the Feather Step from Maskills. Does Suku have the distance? Not quite with the extreme mobility from the Circuit. Impox locked down by the Agni and the combination of Dazer. Sager rotating just to make sure that his support and mid laner get out A-OK. That was some crazy damage early game from Maskill onto Hedgehog. Gonna have to watch his back as the Circuit.
You know, both of them already with the Jotun's Wrath online. This is already a pretty volatile jungle matchup between the two of them. Really, whoever gets on the front foot can expect to win that fight. We'll see a green buff invade here. Hedgehog gets pulled in.
Oh, Hedgehog gets knocked down by the Flame Wave, able to dash away there. A double pull in from the Impox ultimate. Eye-port's here, but with so much single target damage, what can really get done? Agni raining bombs down. Zany is taken out by Hedgehog, and Eye-port finds the kill onto Dazer. The Olympus Bolts have evened this one up.
And you wanted to see what Impox was capable on a more traditional Guardian, and that's just about as well as you can ask for him to play that one. Perfect island placement there, not only pulls in both Zany and Dazer, but also prevents the escape from Zany. Tried to dash away through that jungle corridor, but there's a giant island in the way, Dimes, so he didn't have that option available. It's an easy 2 kills there for them when otherwise, you know, they were a little bit behind. That gives them not only the gold to get back to parity, but also a little bit of momentum in this one where seemed like the Bolts might have been sneaking away with it. Hedgehog playing very aggressively in the jungle, but now the Titans are very clearly back into this one.
Oh man, I'm loving this game number 2 here. So much faster already than game number 1. Plenty of action for us to talk about. And plenty of invades as well. I feel like we didn't really talk about in game number 1. It was a little bit of a slower paced game, but hovering around purples and blues and reds, it seemed like these two squads were in each other's faces the entire time. Only seen that a couple times here in game number 2 as we approach the 10-minute mark.
And it's a lot more fighting on the right-hand side of the map as well.
Sure.
Don't forget that at least early on in game number 1, it was a lot of rotations for that shield buff coming from both junglers. These guys don't stop, man. Hedgehog looking for more onto Maskill, but doesn't find it. It's a lot more fighting in this area of the jungle that we just saw. It's just Maskill and a Hedgehog see each other and see red and try to kill each other pretty much no matter what. And that's so inconsistent with what game number 1 was, which a lot more slower pace.
Oh, beats forced out from the Hedgehog with the combination of Maskill and Sobek. Circuit ultimate onto Sobek, not your priority target, but at least you kick him away. Dazer lurking in the waters, putting out some damage onto the mid laner and the support for the Olympus Bolts. And a disengage there as Maskill and Hedgehog trade ultimates.
So at the end of the day, Hedgehog uses the beads and also a couple of ults traded out. Hedgehog and Maskill both lacking theirs. Dazer mostly for the disengage there. No weird engage onto Listimics.
Also affected by the Neath ultimate, lockdown, pulled back in.
Hello?
Listimics finds the tower shot and the final auto attack with the literal last dregs of mana in the tank. Listimics finds a kill onto kind of an odd jump in there by Hedgehog. No ultimate available, no anti-heal available. I'm not sure what was going through the Circuit's head there.
It was definitely the Neath ult call-out that was driving that play. I don't think they ever go for that with pretty much any other mid laner, save for maybe a Nuwa or something else that can make that kind of global impact. They clearly thought that between the crowd control chain that would come out from that, oh my god, Weaver of Fate ultimate, there we go, that they thought that they could have potentially looked to burst down Listimics, or, I don't know, maybe underestimated the amount of mana he had, but clearly the damage wasn't there and the safety certainly was.
Pluck, pick, Jockin forced beads there. And once again, this Tartarus Titan squad is built to burn beads. I mean, even Zany in the middle lane here, Habwa being replaced by this Agni, with the Agni bombs and the combustion combination, I mean, that is a beads burner central right there. Dazer, Zany, and Maskill. Now even Listimics with so much disruption.
Yep.
The Olympus Bolts are once again going to need to stock up on their purification beads if they want to take these team fights.
Yeah, maybe they took a note from the previous game, and when you mentioned, you know, maybe 3 pairs of beads each might be enough for them.
Minimum.
Yeah, they seem to have only grabbed 1 each, if that, so I don't know, maybe some kind of misplay there. I think that a couple more could potentially help them out, but you're totally right. It is going to be cooldown forcing central for the Tartarus Titans, which means that the Bolts need to play much more carefully around when these cooldowns get forced out. There's a lot of punish on the way.
Oh, Maskill hungry for this left-hand side. Jockin put in the ground there between the Wild Hunt and Maskill making the rotation. Dazer didn't even need to step forward. Probably didn't even get an assist gold for that one, as Jockin is going to be in the ground here for another about 10 seconds or so. Gives Toddy some free farm on this left-hand side. And the Tartarus Titans starting to now build a nice little pocket change of a goal lead here 10 minutes in. As the Gold Fury is getting started here.
Yeah, they're not going to be a whole lot of contest because iPort zoned out by this Sobek. Titans will grab that Gold Fury or Styx Ferryman, you know, depending on who you ask. Maybe the UI would have some different answers, but I love it when we look good, man. We're talking about these cooldowns being forced out and how they're going to play so aggressive around them, how the bolts have to be careful when their beads are down, and immediately as that happens, Masskill rotates over for that shield buff, knows that on that respawn, Jockin's going to have to be forced to step forward because can't afford to just give up that free farm to the enemy ADC, and it is an easy kill every day of the week for you when you've got a target with no beads in a Wild Hunt that's also crippled within a Willish that's also pretty far ahead of them, dealing some good damage to them. That's very good, very easy, and Masskill once again off to pretty good start even after falling early on.
So, I mean, already the Olympus Bolts on the back foot as Zany's getting knocked out here by Hedgehog. Neathol comes through, caught by Masskill, though. That might keep Zany alive. Hedgehog with the return damage goes down to just under a quarter HP. Yo, shout out to Masskill. I don't know if eating that Neathol was on purpose or not, but 100%. Masskill taking that Neath ultimate to the face keeps Zany alive.
Yeah, no question in my mind on that one. And I think we're starting to see the idea of this Olympus Bolts composition. It's iPort sits in the mid lane, has that Neath ult fully charged up, and then waits for a Hedgehog to find trouble in the jungle on this Serket. Serket is a character that has incredible burst damage, very good lockdown, can fight just about anybody in the jungle, but at least early on in the mid game can kind of struggle to find that kill threshold. Just gives you just enough damage required to do it.
iPort with a big explosion there on that World Weaver. Masskill, low, Sager up into the ultimate. A couple shots out of the Cthulhu ought to end this Masskill's life. No, not quite. There it is. Sager taking out the jungler for the Tartarus Titans. So it's going to be a Pyromancer in trade for the jungler's life, and I'm sure Masskill is saying, I'll take it.
Yeah, fine enough. I mean, you'd rather keep your jungler alive, obviously, and Pyromancer are not your ideal objective to be trading somebody out for, but it's probably fine overall. And actually, Zany out of position here will get a good dash away. Mauiel not on the mark to pull him back in, so should be fairly quiet for the next couple of minutes while that cooldown comes back online. But yeah, hang on, what is Hedgehog doing?
Hedgehog is dying to the combination of Agni and Zany and Dazer here, able to escape though. Is looking for some extra farm there, I guess, while Masskill was down. But Zany is pumping out damage. At 13 minutes into this game, a couple of items online. You cannot underestimate this Ogden.
Yeah, and we saw this build in the last game as well, just the double flat pen rush, which hasn't been super, or actually, I should eat my words there. Spear of the Magus is now a % pen option, but certainly a whole lot of penetration to go around either way. It just gives you so much ability to fight early on. Mage builds have been so incredibly slow dimes for a very long time. I'm talking stacking 2 to 3 items in the mid lane. No more of that, man. No more of your Tablet of Destinies. No more of that garbage here. We build penetration items and we deal big damage numbers.
Sager dropping low here. Masskill making the rotation. Totally out of mana is this Cthulhu. Simics tanking up the tower. But here comes the Neath ultimate. Catches Masskill. Able to escape the tower, though. That's a big time advantage there for Masskill. But Hedgehog has made the rotation as well. Does Hedgehog have the catch-up? Looks like not for the moment, but the Stimix and Masskill under tower. Keep your eye on the right-hand side for some kills as Jockin and Impox are taking on Dazer and Toddy here in this left-hand side. Hedgehog's keeping the pedal to the metal in the solo lane. It's going to be a wash map-wide.
And I don't know if it was necessary. I'm going to go ahead and say, you know, Masskill knows a Willish much better than I do, so I'll say it was necessary. I love seeing the usage of cooldowns in an unconventional way. Masskill, you think of that Gravity Surge ultimate as pulling somebody back in, giving you a whole bunch of power and a little bit of attack speed. He uses it there for the slow immunity and the root immunity to get out of the mire that Sager was trying to lay down. If he gets rooted there, then he absolutely falls to Hedgehog on the rotation, but a good heads-up play there, understanding what his kit does and what it's capable of, will keep him alive just long enough.
Now, speaking of Hedgehog, caught in the Wild Hunt here, able to jump over the wall. Purple buff does go down to the jungler for the Olympus Bolts there, so Toddy crying tears of pain as he loses his buff to the jungler for the Olympus Bolts. And now the Olympus Bolts, I mean, clawing their way back into this one a little bit. It's not like they were
Definitely.
down 5 or 10k gold or anything, but they're certainly shoring up this gold lead. As we take over to 15 minutes here in game number 2, hold on just 1 second here, as Dazer might be looking for a little bit more aggression with Maskill and Zany. A little bit of follow-up here. Impox, feather step over, knock up, gravity surge in, bombs coming through. Here's the landfall into Zany, over the wall. Impox able to make it over, but here comes Maskill. Sunny Swords come out from Jockin, able to lock down Maskill as well, but Toddy has made the rotation in the back line, dashes forward. Who's going to out-crit the other Hunter? Aegis comes out from Toddy, and Toddy comes out on top.
And meanwhile, fighting in the backline, Hedgehog still hunting down Zany, 1 HP, and iPort's here to help out.
Oh, plucked in and knocked down. Maskill takes out Hedgehog. iPort's just between a rock and a hard place here, stunned out, lurking in the waters. Put some damage onto the middle lane Hunter, and now it's a free Primal Fury for the Tartarus Titans as they open up a generous lead here on the Olympus Bolts.
Hey man, calling that one free is unfair. They absolutely earned that one off the back end of a fantastic fight. And frankly, an overextension from the Titans. They thought that they could potentially burst down Impox, but that Spear Orb proc preventing a lot of the damage that otherwise would have come out during that CC chain meant that he was just tanky enough to live through that initial engage. And by that point, Dimes, they had burned so many cooldowns into this Maui that they just didn't have a whole lot left over when the engage came back in. It really did seem like it just was going to be bad for them, but I mean, the excellent rotation from Toddy on the back end and then Zany dashing in to lay down as much damage as possible. The turnaround was spectacular there on what could have been otherwise a pretty grim fight for them.
Well, the question I was going to ask Kaizo prior to that engagement becomes even more relevant now as, Jockin, no. Dash away, Maskill, blink in, off the mark there with the knock-up. Jockin able to Aegis the feather step, but it doesn't matter. Toddy's got that crit online. Jockin in the grayscale for 30 seconds. As my question becomes even more relevant now, 17 minutes into this game. I can't wait. I would love to, Kaizo. The Tartarus Titans have opened up a pretty nice lead for themselves here at 17 minutes. The Olympus Bolts, they're scaling versus the Tartarus Titans scaling. Is there one team you're looking at to really take a stranglehold on this mid-game? As Zany's knocked down here by Hedgehog.
Ooh,
Ultimate comes through from the Neath, and the tick damage from Hedgehog finishes off the mid laner. As the Tartarus Titans, nobody sacrifices their own health bar for their middle laner. A bit of a misplay there. Hedgehog grabs that Blood Force shield as well. Dazer able to get out with the lurking in the waters. And aggression here is finally going to relent for just a moment as Listimics making the rotation in, but it's 3 members of the Titans versus 4 without their AoE damage in this middle lane. I'm not sure what kind of defense they have here as Dazer is here with the blink, plucks in Hedgehog, but into the Cthulhu ultimate, Ghost Sager wailing away on the Tartarus Titans, and everybody's dropping rather low here, but no one's going down.
And Maskill will jump over the wall, so that should be an end to that, but off the back of this should be either a tier 1 tower, maybe a pyromancer for the Olympus Bolts. They finally got the better of one of these engagements, Dimes, and it was off of an excellent engage from Hedgehog there. And like you said, a rare misplay from the Titans not blocking that Neathel. Zany just kind of had to let that one come to him because nobody really stepped in front. My man had Aegis available, but clearly thought, you know, one of my friends will help me not die here. And apparently his friends disagreed with him there. And it's been pretty much from minute 1, man. This is the Olympus Bolts game plan. They want Hedgehog to find somebody in the jungle, put 70% damage on them, and then let the Neathult finish them off, or vice versa. It's just playing with the damage thresholds a little bit, where Hedgehog ordinarily, with the Magi's Blessing in this slot, shouldn't be able to one-shot somebody, but on account of the fact that he's also got the Neathult coming in, it's just barely enough damage.
Listimics 2v1ing here, about to make it a 3v1. Tons of healing on the side of the Hercules, but even against 3, the Hercules is not unkillable. Maskill's made the rotation in to help out his solo laner. Neathult comes through. Big time chunk on a Maskill, forced into the beach. Hedgehog blink in. Couple of taunts and a Deathbane takes out Maskill. Listimics still standing for the moment. Zany has made the rotation in. Ipor trades his life for the jungler, and it's going to be a 1-for-1 here. The Olympus Bolts and the Tartarus Titans go even.
And the fact that Mast is the one that dies there instead of Listimics, despite the fact that the Hercules was the one between the towers, feels a little unjust to me, Dimes, because that's absolutely Listimics sacrificing his jungler to get out of that. And for what it's worth, man, he's level 20, he's almost getting toward full build, probably better to sacrifice Mast, but doesn't mean that he's likely to be very pleased with that one. They do at least get the tier 2 tower and right, and not a whole lot to fight over elsewise. I mean, with Mass Kill spawning, Gold Fury spawning at about the same time, it's unlikely that they're going to be missing out on any objectives, but just, you know, using the beads there for Mass Kill, losing the kill, not an ideal situation for the Titans.
Oh, easy Gold Fury here as Toddy's got a 3-level advantage on the enemy ADC in Jockin. Gold Fury's going to go down for the side of the Tartarus Titans, meaning the Fire Giant's the only major neutral objective left on this map here. So wouldn't be surprised if eyes turn to the right side of the map sooner rather than later as we're approaching the mid to late game here in game number 2. The Tartarus Titans pretty handily on top in this game one, and if you had to put your finger, I mean, we've talked about obviously the game plan, Hedgehog, damage, iPort ultimate coming through. If you had to put your thumb on one player or one god to watch from the Olympus Bolts, or one play, you know, to bring them back into this game number 2 and force it to a game 3, who are you looking at?
It's going to be Sager, man. Like, that is what you draft this character for. He's not a lane character by any stretch of the imagination. He's getting pulled in, bullied down here a little bit, but no Willishul just yet.
It's 3 members versus Sager. I'm not sure what kind of damage they can put out on this Cthulhu, who's building pretty darn tanky. In fact, nearly 100% take here, especially once a bit of that ultimate. Just so many protections, so strong, so easy to escape danger, dishing out so much damage as well. Sager's pulled in once more, but keep going on. Walk me through Sager's role in this mid game.
Yeah, he's the guy that you got to look for in these team fights, but hang on, we might not get a chance here as the Tartarus Titans pull the Fire Giant.
The Fire Giant started up, Impox pulled in by Listimics, Landfall only catches 1, and the bomb's doing so much damage. Impox trying to leap away, but Gravity Surge pulls him right back to his death. Sager dropping low to the power of the Agni, a Mire down, lurking in the waters, able to lock him down. Maskill with the finishing touch on that kill. And now it's 2 members down for the Olympus Bolts. It's going to be a roll of the dice here for Hedgehog to steal away this Fire Giant, pulling in 2 squishies. Hedgehog locked down, perfect CC once again from the Tartarus Titans. And Hedgehog gives his life for absolutely nothing as the Titans knock down the Fire Giant and are going to start knocking down some towers.
Yeah, pretty much his only play there, though. I mean, you got to at least try to strip Fire Giant off of one, ideally both backliners. Unfortunate, couldn't get either one. Actually, not even a Relic forced out there. That's a tough spot for Hedgehog. But now with 5 members with the Fire Giant, I mean, we are talking about who's going to be the guy for the Olympus Bolts. And I do think that it has to be Sager. He's a character that, you know, these Guardians in the solo lane, they scale very well into the late game. Not a whole lot to work with in the lane fights, but should be a very big presence in these team fights.
No Landfall available, probably the best teamfight ultimate for the Olympus Bolts. Same thing with the Ishtar ultimate, but Zany and Daisy are getting knocked down here pretty early as Impox is yanked in, takes 80-90% of his health bar. Jockin frontlining here for the Olympus Bolts, sending some crits in the face of the Tartarus Titans, and enough damage goes down on the mid laner and the support for the Tartarus Titans that for the moment, the Olympus Bolts have forced the Titans off their right-hand bird, who's surviving with maybe 10-15% of its health bar.
Yeah, and I do think that that's probably not the worst case scenario for the Titans, just because they didn't lose anybody in that engagement. Granted, you know, Relics forced off of Zany, Beads also used by Mass Kill, but don't forget, they hadn't even reset off of doing that Fire Giant. Still a lot of golden pocket to work with, especially now that that Pyromancer has gone down as well. Their next fight is going to be much better than the one that we saw right here. And that already went fairly well for them. I mean, they got, like you said, 90% HP off of the Phoenix and didn't lose a member without using most of the advantage that they just gained from farming out the map and taking those objectives. The Titans are in a pretty good spot here, considering the fact that everybody's still alive, everybody's still got Fire Giant, Primal Fury due to spawn as well, Dimes. Very commanding position for the Titans.
Now that we're moving into this mid-game, you know, thinking about Phoenix defense, Hedgehog, maybe a little bit too forward here. The Olympus Bolts are not willing to let this tier 2 tower go without a fight, though. Typically, you see teams with added disadvantage choose to fight under their Phoenix, but this tier 2 tower, valuable enough for the Olympus Bolts to make the choice to stand their ground here. Gold Fury back online. It's going to be an Oni Fury. Excuse me, Primal Fury on that left-hand side. Speaking of the left-hand side, the Tartarus Titans grouping up as a 3-man unit here to push down this left tier 2 tower. They say, well, the Bolts don't want to let their middle one go. I guess we'll just take this one on the left and call it a day. Hedgehog wrapping around the back line. Listimics face tanking pretty much every member of the Olympus Bolts here because he's a Hercules, and that's what Hercules does. But now a little bit too big for his britches. Forced out. Mass Kill on the back line here, looking for a target. Isn't able to find one. Sager able to take that Maui portal out. And now this mid lane tower is looking a little bit juicy here for the Tartarus Titans.
And that's probably going to be the call to give this one up for the Bolts, considering they didn't get the kill onto Listimics. They used not only the Blades of Retribution, but also that Sir Kettle. Should be just a soft defense here as the teleport comes back in from this Hercules. And actually, with Hedgehog this low, they might go in.
The Hedgehog forced the beads out as well. Gravity Surge down. A great landfall onto 2. Dazer Force into lurking into the waters. Toddy takes out Sager. Listimics leading the charge here.
Oh, no.
Oh, pulls in Jockin with a temporary Aegis to save his life for 2 seconds. That's not going to last very long. Impox is the next target. Couple dot damage from Zany. He's going to put the support in the ground, and iPort now being walked down by Maskill. It's a slaughter and a genocide on the side of the Tartarus Titans. And with this middle lane Phoenix going down, I don't even think the Tartarus Titans need to reset. The nearest member of the Olympus Bolts going to be up in 20 seconds. The Tartarus Titans walking into the throne room of the Olympus Bolts. And the Tartarus Titans, once the damage comes out on these low health members, making my heart beat a little bit here. It's going to be a 2-0 set. The Tartarus Titans clean up the Olympus Bolts and take down this pre-SPL SCC match.
And the Toddy letting them know there at the end, because that was definitely a great game from the Titans. And Listimics continues to impress, man. Like, I personally have not heard of this guy before, but I absolutely know his name now. Make no mistake about it. He had a standout performance on that Vomit, at times being the only member required to win the team fights. And then the Hercules looked flawless all the way through. Like, we didn't get to see a whole lot of it. It was a lot of Master driving that one again. And this time around, we saw a lot more of the mid lane. The Agni got very active in that one. Toddy on that Kernidos certainly bullied out that dual lane pretty consistently, but it was always the Hercules in the late game that drew my eye. Pulling, pushing, dropping those boulders in, as you said, face tanking the entirety of the enemy team at times. I loved watching Listimic go to work, and I'm excited to see what else he's got for us.
And you know, in the first game, we were talking about how much disruption Maskill and Listimics opened up for their backline. Are kind of the same deal in this game. Toddy going 7-0, Zany going 5-2. I'm sure the damage numbers will be there as well. But it felt like the fire bombs and the crits and the wild hunts were able to rain down with almost impunity. Like, Zany so rarely was dived. I mean, Toddy didn't even drop a death in that game. It seemed like the Olympus Bolts just had no answer for how much space the Tartarus Titans were able to create for their backline.
Yeah, the Bolts draft seemed to be centered around trying to focus out Mast and make sure that he wasn't able to play. But, I mean, we saw some shining moments of that, and we saw a couple of times that damage went on to the mid laner instead. But generally speaking, the backline for the Titans was fairly safe in that one. It didn't look like the priority was on killing them. It looked like a lot of the times the frontliners were the focus, trying to play like a front-to-back style. But you know, when Listimics is the guy across from me that you're trying to kill, it doesn't look like that's going to be an easy task to bring him down. He was very safe throughout that one, didn't allow these cheese rotations to go onto him to much effect, and really just made a strong powerhouse core for this Titans roster.
Well, Kaizo, I was going to say a quick 2-0, but certainly a well-fought 2-0 there for the Tartarus Titans over the Olympus Bolts, and that's going to finish up our round here as the SCC boys. You're going to want to stick around, though, because SPL starts in just a little bit. And then, of course, after the SPL is more SCC action, this time jumping over to North America. So that's going to round out our time here with you. Thank you so much for joining us. For myself, for Kaizo, for wonderful production, our Spectator Raptor, and everyone here, thank you so much for tuning in. Stick around for SPL. We'll catch you next time. Stay hydrated.